I'm Kathy Hester, and this is DIY Holiday Gift class. I want to show you how to make some homemade chili powder. And to me, this is one of the best gifts that you can give. It's also not that hard. It's just not that hard. And we'll talk about the 2 steps you need. The hardest thing people seem to find is, and I'm going to show you some different containers that I have too, is finding chilies. And now you can find them in these kind of bags at like Aldi's, at most local supermarkets. They are often a little more expensive than going to somewhere like a Latin market like Campari Foods, where they literally have a giant table that's heaped up with each kind of dried pepper, and you can take 1 or 2 or however many you want. So anyhow, so I wanted to show you these, and then I've toasted some already. And so we'll look at those too, because these are the ones we're going to grind. So what I did with these is they're dehydrated. So I dehydrated them overnight. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can do it on a low temperature in your oven, like the lowest setting. It's a lot easier to do it that way than it is to toast them, because we're going to grind these. So we want them very, very dry. And you can make either single variety chili powders or you can make a mix. So, and I wanted to show you, we're using Ancho and Guajillo. Guajillo, I think I'm saying it right now. I wanted to show you what these kind of look like before, and to show you how to take out the seeds and the stems, because that you want to do that before you dry them. Okay, so let's go overhead, and that's just where I'm going to put the middle part. Okay, so they're different. An Ancho reminds me more of a giant raisin, and it's thicker, the wall. This is very thin. With these, sometimes you can just tear off the stem end, or you can cut it. So a lot of times I will use my kitchen shears just to make this easier. If you are allergic or have big reactions to any kind of peppers, wear gloves. The Guajillo and the Ancho are not that spicy. Anchos can kick up a little bit though. And so see how I just cut down the side of that? And then we're just going to scrape out any extra seeds. If a couple stay in there, it's okay. And see how this is the ribs? You want to get that. For when I decided to dry them, because I put them in late last night, I cut them a little bit too. But this is all it is to break down a Guajillo chili. And it's delicious. Yeah, and you can use your air fryer for dehydrating. And actually, in fact, these are from my Breville. It's like a toaster oven and air fryer and dehydrator, but I use the dehydrator setting because I can do a lot in there at once. So another thing, and if you've taken some of my other classes, you could take this the way it is now. If you were going to make some beans, stick it in your beans to make refried beans and puree it all up together, and it adds this amazing flavor. And I've never weighed just one, but I got a whole bunch of peppers and tomatillos and jalapenos and cilantro and some other things for like $8. So I would think one of these would probably be 10 cents, 20 cents tops. They're not very expensive. So this is a really awesome thing to have around because you can use it for so many things. Now let's look at the Ancho one because it's just a little different. And it is usually moisture. So with the Ancho, I can kind of pull it up, right? See that? And then I'm going to cut it. And this is a much thicker skin. and I'll show you the comparison too. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to cut it down the side just to make it a little easier for me. Sometimes if you get them in the bags, they are more brittle, right? So then I'm just going to take that out, and the ribs come out really easily. Okay, so let me tear that in half, and we'll open this guy up. And so you can see comparably, it's much thicker. Probably 3 times as thick as the flesh. And the same thing with these ancho chilies. You could put those in with beans. You can make a sauce, so you could actually rehydrate these the way they are now. We could put them in water to rehydrate them, pour off the water, blend it, and maybe add a little salt, maybe some lime juice, a few things like that if you wanted. And that's a great sauce to put on tacos and things like that. There's so many things you can do with dried chilies, and I encourage you to do them all. So what we have here, so these are the guajillo chilies that I've dried all the way, and you can see a difference in the color. Okay, and they're a little more wrinkly. So, and see how I can do that and barely anything comes off? I'm going to put this in a spice grinder, and we'll talk about spice grinders a little bit too. So like this, however, hear it? Did you guys hear that? I'll get it closer to the mic. So it is really, really pretty dry, and that's what we want. So I'm going to make 2 different chili powders. I'm going to make an ancho chili powder and a guajillo. If I was gifting these, I might mix them together, or I might even add in some other pepper or chili that I saw at the market to try out, because there's a difference between chile powder and chili the stew powder. So chili for stew powder also has in things like cumin and oregano and some different spices, maybe some garlic. Whereas chili powder is just chilies. That's all it is. And like I get some from Rancho Gordo, and I think they use New Mexican chilies. And it has a very rich, delicious flavor, and it's good in soups and stews and so many different things. And again, you can do the smell test. If you're making a soup and you're not sure if it'll be good, smell the soup and then smell the peppers. If your mouth says yes, then you can do it. If your mouth is like, oh, then don't do it, right? I have a little attachment that is a spice grinder attachment. You don't have to have this to make these. One of the reasons I like it is because it's super powerful. I do a lot of this, right? So it's good for me to have. I can put up a link if you are looking for a cheaper blender and want the attachment. I can put up a link. Else you could do these in your Vitamix if you wanted. You can also do them in any spice grinder. You can do them in a coffee grinder. If you're doing it in a coffee grinder, make sure to put some white rice through it to begin with to get the coffee flavor out, and then to put some more white rice through it. And by through it, I mean grind it. And that should take some of the pepper out. You may have to do it more than once. What I recommend that you do is get a coffee grinder that's dedicated for spices. And you're probably going, well, you said this was going to be inexpensive. Well, I see them for $4 or $5 all the time at thrift stores. Like I saw a really good like $30 coffee grinder. And so I would definitely look there first. I'm going to see how much I can get in here. Okay. So if you look overhead, and I think you're not really going to see, you're not going to see a lot happening, but you might see more overhead. Okay, I filled it up. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to put it on extract. You can see how it went down a lot. But and also when you're doing chilies, it's a good thing to not immediately take this off, but to let it sit for about 10 or 20 seconds. Oh my God, you guys, I wish you could smell it. It smells like magic. I dare say that even the fancy store-bought chili powder or powdered chilies you can buy, that nothing smells as good as this. I'm probably going to be able to get the rest of these in. By crunching them in a little bit. And peppers are really not expensive, but you can, if you wanted to buy a jar of chili powder, like of really nice chili powder, it could be $7 or $8, which is, you can make a whole lot for $7 or $8 and get little jars from the thrift store to save them in. So I'm going to see if I can get this last ones. And so what you will know if you have not dehydrated these enough, because they just won't grind up into a powder. And if it's just a piece or two, then what you can do is just pick that out, dry it a little bit more. But again, dehydrating is really my favorite option on these. Let me get this out of the way. And I have some of this chili everywhere, so I'm going to see if I can save it. And if you want to put some seeds in there, you can. Depending on the chili, that's going to make things very spicy. It's not going to make this spicy, so I'm not so worried about that. So we're going to do the blending one more time. Okay, I'm going to move this around a little bit. Seems like a few pieces are stuck. I probably tried to put too much in. So actually I could just take some of these out. I'm going to take some of these pieces, which are just a few, because I think I overfilled it. And then we're going to let that finish. And let me find a little bowl to put these guys in. Okay. So back to the blending. So what you saw me doing this was just to make sure that I could see what was going on. This is also very sturdy on the table. Oh my God, it's like velvet. And I have it a whole arm's length away. And I can smell the aroma. It's just so delicious. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put it in a measuring cup, and then we'll do the rest of it. And these are something that you could do and see how some of that is stuck in there. So I'm going to take the spoon. And depending on how humid your environment is, you may want to save some things from your vitamins or herbs, those little drying packs. And I often stick that with when I make homemade chili powder, jalapeno powder, or tomato powder. Okay, now we're going to finish up these guys. And also, if you're using a coffee grinder, you might have to put some of these things through twice, depending on how fine you want it. And this is perfectly good for me. And, you know, I love the body powder and things like this, but if you want to make me a set of chili powders, I'll take that any day, any time. And I just want to we're probably not going to do as many of the anchos, but I'd like to do a couple. And again, this is how stiff it is. This is the toasted one. This is our dehydrated one. This is the not dehydrated. But I'm not going to make you go through listening to all of this. But I do just want you to see how it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit thicker. And I'm not going to overfill it this time, I say, as I'm probably overfilling it right now. And the smaller you can kind of break these up, that also just speeds up the process. If you're putting this in your Vitamix, I wouldn't bother doing this at all. Okay, so let's see if the Ancho chili powder looks a little different or not. See, I think now since this could be a spicier pepper, and you see, I don't know if you can see, the stuff is starting to gather on the lid. And what you're doing, so what I like about this is it's covered, so I can breathe all up around it. I'm not going to get anything. When you do something like jalapenos, because I make my own jalapeno powder, and oh good, actually there's one of the little things from jars in here. There we go. So see how I have one of those little things? And it helps keep it drier. Jalapeno powder is pretty awesome. It adds, like these add these darker flavors, and I feel like jalapeno adds like a really bright, tiny bite flavor. It's really good, especially like in vegan queso, in beans. It's really good sprinkled on black eyed peas. So there's a lot of yummy things you can do. Let me see if, oh yeah, I think these got, and you can smell the difference. So it's like I'm in chili heaven right now, but let me show you, I'll show you the powder in here. And one thing too, if you have something like this, I'm going to wash it, but I want to make sure it is completely bone dry before I start putting any spices in there again. Though we may put one more spice in there. So let's do an overhead. So this is the Ancho chili powder. And the measuring cup is the guajillo. You can see there's a little difference in color. Sometimes there will be and sometimes there won't. But the Ancho definitely has more of a dried fruit, sweeter flavor to me. But the thing is a lot of times I will list individual chilies out in recipes separately, and sometimes I'll just say chili powder, and it just depends on what I have on hand. But if you give someone homemade chili powder, A, you're going to save $1 bazillion on gifts, and B, you're going to make them the happiest people ever. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful December. Enjoy all the holidays.